When you simply label BTS as a K-pop group and then paint their fan bases sex-crazed young women.
I mean, look at me. That is me in a nutshell. Greetings, humanoids. My name is Comedian. I'm sat here in a chair and I'm going to watch a video and film myself doing that. It's incredibly weird, I know, but luckily people have done this before, so I think it's okay now. It's called a reaction video. Get with the times. The year is 2016. I don't know where I'm going. My brain is a mess. But today I'm going to do BTS versus K-pop. I've had a few requests for this. I think it's about time. I think I've had a good amount of context, with the rise of Bangtan, and also just my own reaction channel. Like, I've been doing mostly BTS recently. I have done some other K-pop reactions in the past, and I've never hated any of it, but BTS is always the one that I come back to. It's the one that, actually stays with me. So I understand, what people mean when they say that, there's a whole contentious thing about calling BTS K-pop, or how BTS themselves like to call their own genre the BTS genre, which is, both an incredible flex and potentially the most pretentious thing I've ever heard in my entire life, in a really delightful, endearing way. Incredible. Anywho, a big thank you to the people who've requested this. So thank you to Kayla Kulik and Victoria Loves Music. If you like my videos, or if you just start watching this video and you like it already, then maybe go on my Patreon and help support this channel, and also watch Run BTS and Bon Voyage reactions, and tell me what to react to once a week with a Patreon for Thursdays special deal thingy. But most importantly, just subscribe, stick around and watch, and hopefully have fun. Let's get straight into this. K-pop's Batman in his cave.
What's up?
Oh, he's got the same mic as I do. It's a good mic.
Talk about BTS again. It's time for a video essay.
All right, I like this guy already.
K-pop. So BTS are really big. They're really big. They're big beyond the imagined constraints that groups like theirs are meant to reach. They've shattered numerous records for South Korean artists, including easily breaking the record for highest selling South Korean album with a 7-track EP that came out less than a year ago called Map of the Soul Persona. According to The Hollywood Reporter, they account for almost $5 billion of the South Korean economy, rivaling the value of that of Samsung and Hyundai. Those are multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations being rivaled by a 6-year-old music group from an indie entertainment company. And in response...
And if you're Samsung right now, or Hyundai, you've got to be in shambles, because, they're like, what are we doing wrong? We've got a company that employs thousands of people making $5 billion. There's 7 of them. Think of the spoils. That's almost $1 billion each.
The rest of the world is confused as
their fans, I swear to you, it's like the Beatles have Lazarus just risen from the dead. People are
Map of the
really
Soul, which has already had 3 million pre-orders. We have some very big fans right outside the studio today.
Millions of let's make them win. They're a million retweets and everything. It makes me and Shawn Mendes are how do we get this?
What was the Bieber thing? I'm trying to read. I guess it's not important to read all of this.
And in order to be a K-pop artist, you got to go through K-pop college, and that's actually a real thing.
It's understandable that people would be confused. How could a music group whose primary language is Korean dominate international markets to the point of being the best-selling record globally in 2019?
Which already shows a kind of Eurocentric or Anglo-centric, just English-speaking centric, to use, more plain terms, arrogance. Because no one ever questions that, that Eminem would be popular in Norway or something. Watch me sweat trying to think of actual contemporary music. Like I listen to any of that, or know stuff, or aren't technically ancient by internet standards. Cardi B, there we go. No one's questioning that Cardi B would be huge in France or something, that's the whole beauty of music. The whole beauty of music is it transcends cultures and languages because of the way it works on our brains. So why would it be surprising that good music would transcend a language just because it's in Korean? Shock horror.
Record globally in 2019. With one...
And now there's no sound on this. Have I gone insane? Why is there no sound on this? What did I do? I feel like I've lost my mind. I pressed pause and the world ended. And my ears fall off. Because there's no way it's my computer. They wouldn't let me down like that. No,
Of music.
All right, it's working again. Thank goodness. Okay.
Dominate international markets to the point of being the best-selling record globally in 2019. With one EP, that had one single. In order to understand, at least
That is impressive.
how BTS became this big, you'd have to have an understanding of South Korean history, the South Korean music industry, international hip-hop, and social media fandom at the least. And most publications either aren't able to gain these understandings or don't care to. So instead, most of the conversation focuses on one ostensibly understandable part of BTS's identity: K-pop. I mean, after all, BTS are a K-pop group. Right? Maybe? I think. You can't gain a true understanding about BTS's rise to success without understanding the world they came from, which is K-pop. The problem is, most people don't understand K-pop or BTS as much as they think they do. What do you think when you think of K-pop, casual audience member? I'd guess you think of screaming teenage girls, perfect looks and choreography, simple English hooks, and of course that spooky underbelly that every magazine and their mama has lined up to cover over the years. There are two problems with this. One, BTS have succeeded in great part due to their divergence from these common K-pop qualities. But when BTS and their success are constantly grouped in with K-pop by Western media, the people being introduced to them who only know those things are going to think that BTS success comes down to those things, which could be further from the truth, but still isn't really true.
And I would argue, I don't think a lot of this is like casual ignorance. I think it's like willful ignorance. Like if you're writing an article, then you owe it to yourself to study. Like the reason, like at least I have integrity, all right? Like the reason I did English university at school, I was always good at English. The reason I would never want to become a journalist was because I knew I would never, ever in my life be bothered to research anything. When they did essays and they were like, you have to cite at least 5 articles on this, I was like, why? Why 5? Why 5 specifically? What if my article requires 20? Or what if I really genuinely think I only need 1? Or what if the sentiment I'm expressing, nobody else has expressed? Does that mean it's therefore, irrelevant? And not worthy of expressing? Like luckily YouTube exists now, so you can say something that no one else wants to hear and nobody else has ever said it before with no support or backup whatsoever, and people will maybe listen, or at least you won't be arrested for it or given a C, for example. But back then in university, I had to prove that at least 2 people agreed with my line of thinking, which is nonsense. But the point being, this tangent I went on, which I never do, sorry about that, is that, it is a shame how a lot of, the state of journalism, obviously there's still loads of fantastic journalism, and I hate, not at all trying to get towards the very fascist mindset of journalism's bad, screw journalists, but it's a shame when they talk about issues like this, which are often, contentious and often wrapped up in race and stuff like that they don't want to do their research. Let's just put it that way.
But still isn't really true. And 2, K-pop is a lot more complicated than the ideas everyone has of it. Even the people that study and discuss Korean music disagree on their definitions of what K-pop is and what the term K-pop even means. I've been tangentially in the media industry for less than 2 years, and covering BTS for less than half a year. And I'm here to tell you that the media industry is not covering BTS as well as they should in the West. I started a Twitter account with the goal of explaining these topics in a form that blends journalism and social media. It's a Twitter account called TY But Disagree. Today we're launching the first episode of our TY But Disagree video series, hosted right here on Baby Gang, my YouTube channel, and fake media company. If anything, it doesn't matter. Here's what matters. Today we're going
I like this guy.
BTS in relation to K-pop. We're going to learn about what K-pop is, what BTS are, and whether or not BTS are even a K-pop group in the first place. And before you close this video and dismiss that question as absurd, I assure you, this stuff is way more nuanced than you think it is.
Most things are.
What is K-pop? Is K-pop a genre or an industry?
It upsets me that I don't have glasses because I can't, I lose credibility. Well, I mean, the words I say do that for me handily as well. But if I had the glasses, I think I would get away with the words I say more. Like that.
Is K-pop? Is K-pop a genre or an industry?
That's incredible. I can't do that.
Yes or no. A 2017 article by TK Park on his popular blog Ask a Korean, entitled K-pop is not a genre, asserts that the term loosely only refers to popular music of Korea, which of course includes many types of genres and labels. Park mentions the rock group FT Island and the solo crooner IU.
And that was always my kind of understanding of it.
Styles of music, but can both be classified as K-pop. Therefore, K-pop can't be a genre.
Just music that was popular in Korea.
Simple enough, right? Well, no. It's important to remember that genre classification in general does not strictly refer to musical stylings. At least, This is the assertion held in a response article by Lizzie Parker at the blog Beyond Hallyu from the same year, entitled, "Is K-pop a genre? Yes. Yes it is." That's the title, I didn't exaggerate that. Parker did not entirely throw out Park's assertion that K-pop
What on earth?
is a loose classification.
Did he record this on a CRT? What is happening with the text?
That this makes it a genre all the same, as all genre classifications have this same looseness. Quote, "No one actually uses genres to make concrete, definitive lists of specific kinds of music. They're relational terms we use so we can form an understanding of a piece of music, often before we have listened to it, in relation to our existing cultural reference points, and further understand our and others' enjoyment," or...
Yeah, like, I kind of support the notion of that, because I can't stand people that get bogged down in being pretentious about genres, or people, like I'm a huge dubstep fan, and back when dubstep was like blowing up, 50 years ago, you had dubstep purists that would be like, well, stuff like Skrillex is not dubstep, it's bro-step, which was a stupid term then. It sounds even more stupid now. It looked, walked, and quacked like dubstep, so everyone called it dubstep, and guess what? It's just dubstep now. Like, it's like people who want to insist, well, you can't change the meaning of words, but you actually can. That's why dictionaries exist. If the meanings of words never changed ever, then dictionaries wouldn't exist. No need for them. But language evolves and flows. It's like water. And maybe water used to mean piss. Maybe me saying that would be awkward to somebody 500 years ago. Luckily, water now means this clear drink I'm drinking, which isn't piss. Why am I talking about this? But the point is, language, is an ever-changing thing, and that's why I really don't like pretension about musical genres. But because it usually comes down to splitting hairs. But it also is an interesting contrasting point to what is being said here, which is that, there are such genre purists, they'll usually, break it down to BPMs. They'll be like, well, this BPM is 1 nanosecond off this, so this cannot be, quantum physics rock, clearly. So I think that the whole genre argument is a big, pretentious firestorm of an argument. I agree with the sentiment behind this, but at the same time, people often do divide genres up between literal BPMs, between musical elements. So I'm also not a musician, not a music nerd, not really qualified to speak on this subject. This person who's talking might be a music professor, and that would be very embarrassing. So maybe, just ignore me. And if you've already been doing that, congratulations. But yeah, I can see why is K-pop a genre is a contentious issue, though. That's what I'm trying to say.
You can imagine. Louis Capaldi and Lizzo both have 2 of the top songs on pop charts right now as of my making this video, but one of them makes sad white boy folk pop, and another one of them makes funk, soul, and disco adjacent rap music. They're both pop artists in that they employ accessible music qualities. They have catchy melodies.
Why genre is great till they gotta be great? That's the real question.
Mixes, but from a technical standpoint and from a cultural standpoint, they couldn't be any more different from each other. Both authors make valid points. Given that K-pop basically means Korean pop, that means that this sloppy genre classification still qualifies in a way. The only difference is the subcategorization of this music being primarily or entirely created and marketed by the Korean music industry, mostly in the Korean language and mostly performed by Koreans or people of Korean descent. In the United States, genre classification has strong ties to racial and cultural barriers. As described by the musicologist Robert Fink in a PS Mag piece by Jack Denton, quote, "The way genre works is to create categories that are partly musical, but also have a lot to do with the perceived identity of the artists."
See, this is what I was talking about. This guy's video is great. He's got so many sources. He would make my English professor, happy. He would finally do things that I couldn't do for that professor and all of them. But this guy, this is well researched. This is well made.
A lot to do with the perceived identity of the artists and the target market. This could partially explain why K-pop is such a prevalent term in the United States, but is by many accounts used far less in Korea. Instead, the term idol music is used to describe what Americans typically deem K-pop, as in the groups and solo acts who create hybridized Korean songs with Western pop music.
Okay, and now I want to know, was the term K-pop invented in America or the West, or was it invented in Korea? Because it's very hard to imagine it was invented in Korea. It's hard to imagine the American artist or Sony genre label sitting down and being like, we're going to call it A-pop, American pop, and market it to Americans. Like, it's a very unnecessary letter added to it
choreography
in some contexts.
Deconstructed the term K-pop a little bit. Let's talk about what...
And my brain as well.
And where it came from. In order to do that, a brief history of music in South Korea.
Excellent. Let me try and remember all of this and fail.
Hundreds, Korean culture was shaped by Sino-centrist ideals, deeply influenced by their proximity and allyship with China. This led to the preeminence of Korean Confucianism, which entailed the emphasis on things like a stringent shared moral code in social situations, a respect for elders, and a necessitation of ritualism. Those rituals extend to the
And fantastic robes. Robes that would make a wizard weep with jealousy.
scale, involved Chinese-derived instruments and garb, and included genres like pansori, which is a type of storytelling via vibrato-heavy, open-throated pentatonic scale singing. These styles...
Okay, now I want to hear some of that. If any of that is, well, this sounds sad to say, but, it's a reaction chat. If any of that is a video topic that people would actually care about, that actually gets views on YouTube, I'd love to see it. If not, just send it to me and I'll watch it by myself. I don't have to film it if, no one's going to watch. Like, that's just embarrassing. But, because what he just said, I think he basically just said, sounds like slam poetry with someone playing a drum, which is genius. Like, slam poetry wishes it was that cool.
Body is still, the clothes are unrevealing of any flesh. The lyrics were even oriented towards Confucian ideals of family and morality. Japanese rule over Korea led greatly to the introduction of Western styles of music, particularly classical styles and even balladic styles that translate more directly into modern pop music. Then after World War II, Japanese rule over Korea ended and Western artistic influences came from the United States more than anything.
Jesus, this is like being in school again, except this time I'm interested in the subject, so I have a very, a good desire to learn. That helps with ADHD. I didn't know I had ADHD till I was a lot older, and I was like, oh, that's why my grades just started dropping one year, and that's why I found myself like licking the floor or something when I should have been paying attention. So now my fear about not taking this in isn't because I'm like, oh, I might get a C or a B. My fear is now, well, I actually want to learn this. I want to keep this, this is useful information. It's interesting. I want to retain this. So yeah, that was a nice pep talk. Probably just taught myself out of learning it anyway.
Period of American occupation. Things ebbed and flowed and changed over the decades. South Korean audiences became more and more appreciative of Western sounds, particularly as the television and the karaoke machine grew to become highly popular and as the economy improved. Hip-hop became a phenomenon in the West during the 80s, and its influence disseminated throughout the world. Satirical Boys debuted in 1990 and completely abandoned pentatonic scale structure, making full use of diatonic hip-hop, rock, and pop sounds. They also incorporated dancing, which had been utilized successfully by artists like Sobangcha before them. They weren't the first to do
And baggy jeans.
but they were the most influential, particularly in how they synthesized these elements, how they reformed the conventional music TV formats and other music formats, how they built a really strong fan base of young people, and their overall explosive entry into the Korean music industry signaled a change in things to come. Satirical Boys, by the way, were pretty badass. They wrote their own stuff and
They look cool.
and despite their music not carrying the same leftist ideals necessarily that previous attempts at Western music had in South Korea, they were still unafraid to challenge status quo and older generations in a very un-Confucian way. Notably, in 1988, South Korea lifted travel restrictions on its citizens. After Sateji, Westernization in Korean pop music accelerated quickly, with the rise of groups like HOT, who are considered the first idol group as they were the first to be scouted, trained, and put together to become a hit boy band, as well as the rise of Korean dramas like the big 2002 hit Winter Sonata. A sudden, drastic, and ongoing increase of intrigue in South Korean culture and art began globally. This phenomenon is referred to as Hallyu. As a side note, I recommend that those interested in Hallyu read Kim Buk-rae's Past, Present, and Future of Hallyu paper, as well as John Lie's What is the K in K-pop, which greatly informed this history section of the essay that I'm doing. In the former, Kim states the following of Hallyu and its focus of decentralizing Western culture by adapting it. Quote, under the current circumstances, the Hallyu boom is emerging in the modernized/industrialized East Asia, where people with an economic power have a strong desire to be
Oh, you lost me at the first use of modernized.
activities. In this context, Hallyu can no longer be considered a simple cultural acculturation, but a transcultural phenomenon or a process of cultural power reorganization through the complex/dynamic movements of people, mass medias, and transnational
Okay, I had this struggle a lot doing an English degree. I don't know why I did an English degree, and that's why a whole other kettle of fish, but that's why I hate the UK style university. Like there's many things America, well, in general gets wrong, but American universities get wrong. But one of the best things about American university I discovered is the idea of being undeclared, is the idea of changing your major like you would change a coat, because that's, you know, if you're like 18, 22, whatever, like that's how your brain works. Like nobody knows what they want to be then. No one knows even now. Like 7 years later or whatever. Like, I don't really still know. I really enjoy doing this. I sincerely hope I'm still doing it in 10 years. Who knows? Let's face it. But this is one of the things that really made me struggle with English, was having to read papers that were written like this. And maybe it was an insecurity, and I just projected that, and my response to it was to say, wow, the writing was just poor, and that was just me making up for the fact that my brain couldn't handle words with more than 2 or no syllables. But the amount of essays I read that used the exact same kind of like countenance, the exact same structure, the exact same just meaty word pie. Like, I really think there is power in saying something as simply as possible, which is embarrassing to admit, because I think I often say 50 words when one will do. But they're usually quite short, I think. And just the amount of word salad I had to read in English, like, I really think, like, this, like, there's nothing wrong with this. It's triggering, really. Like, it's making me have flashbacks to reading stuff in English, and this kind of stuff I hated, when my brain would turn off and I would start screaming at myself, like, you have to read this, you have to get this done, even though my brain had less than no desire to. I would rather, like, try and eat gravel off the floor. Anyway, this is a whole tangent and hypocritical statement right now, but I'm pretty sure that, like, my whole logic for language is that if you can say something simply in a couple of words and have it mean as much as something that somebody spends 50 years writing, then that is the better choice. That is the more organic, more natural, more worthy choice. And I also think that is a big part of the reason why I like BTS so much. Like, their themes are so advanced, like, so complimentary, so good, but I don't think they put too much of a barrier behind their lyrics. And that's not me saying they're simple. I think they talk about some really complex stuff and some stuff in some really deep ways, but they don't like hide it behind crazy stories or whatever. Like, the core meaning is still very, very strong, and I think that is very important. Whew, that was a tangent. It's not even really about this video. Apologies for that.
Thanks to this eventual embrace and aim for perfection in the realm of popular Western forms, South Korea's economy is boosted drastically year by year by its cultural exports. Understanding Korean history teaches us a few things. One, that Korean culture is divided between past and present, between Western ideals and the remnants of Confucianist, Sinocentric ideals. While South Korean society still retains these moral codes and customs related to respect and ritualism, it's also being pulled quickly in the direction of more liberal, rebellious, anti-traditional ideas, in part because these ideas are fueling boosts to the country's economy. This conflict manifests in the music itself and the music industry, which is very dead set on upholding certain traditions and approaches while using art forms like hip-hop that are built on anti-establishment, anti-ritual values. This creates a tension within the music that is ironically uniquely Korean, despite the fact that your average K-pop song bears little resemblance to anything that existed in Korea before the 20th century. Thusly, it teaches us that K-pop is more than just a genre or an industry. It is a cultural export, and somewhat antagonistically to the people who make money from K-pop, a progressive cultural movement. Additionally, K-pop is not just a genre or an industry specifically, but a format where music of various genres comes with a dance/visuals package. So yes, K-pop is a genre in a way because it speaks to a direct social-cultural concept that relates to what we understand basically is Hallyu, and the underpinnings of South Korean society shifting as it balances the traditional with the progressive, the old and the new, both of which can be debated as potentially more expedient than expressive. What's funny and unsurprising is that the artists that seem to shirk conventionality and tradition the most, against the grain of what makes up most of this genre that's supposed to be export friendly, are the ones that become the most successful and the most exported. That can be said of Soteji and...
See, I talked about this a lot when I've been watching The Rise of Bangtan, because I think it shows... It's just the irony of like BTS being one of the few groups, it seems, that are really allowed a wide range of creative freedom and talk about topics that are quite controversial in what I've been told is, and what this video is saying, I think is a reasonably like conservative or like emotionally conservative society like South Korea, and yet they're the ones who do the best because they actually do break that mold. It's the irony of people being like, oh, you can't say that, like what will people think? And what people usually think is great, thanks for speaking up on that, like, and screw the toxic Victorian kind of ideal that says we shouldn't talk about human emotions and things that everyone experiences, as if that's healthy to suppress things that everyone goes through.
Who very much did not look or sound like the hotties you'd see in HOT, but still absolutely shattered the international music market with 2012's Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
A song which, true story, is actually a commentary about about the nouveau riche young Koreans attempting to flex their material wealth and coolness like the kids in the city of Gangnam. It's basically the dance craze EDM version of Beverly Hills by Weezer.
Or the dance craze EDM version of Bepse, I guess. No, not Bepse. Oh, damn it! I'm so terrible with song names. I'm gonna have to look this up now. This video is gonna be a mammoth one, but that's good because I'm learning a lot and I'm having a good time, so that's fine. Okay, the BTS song where they made their own music video. My memory's so bad, I'm trying to think of the thumbnail of the video I made about it to remember the name, which is shameful. Screw it, I'll just have to look in my videos. Spine Breaker. Okay, that was it. That's the video I meant. So does that mean Gangnam Style is like a spine breaker? That was a worthy use of 1 minute of my time.
Version of Beverly Hills by Weezer. So yeah, so Taeji and his boys, don't forget the boys, they succeeded from shirking conventionality, and then Psy succeeded from shirking conventionality, and am I forgetting somebody? Part who are BTS and why?
I was like, is it Jesus? Is it Jesus?
So Taeji and boys debut. They make Korean pop rap a thing. They become hugely influential, and then Lee Soo-man, president of SM Entertainment, realizes that black music is going to be key to constructing K-pop in the image of So Taeji and others. So he scouts an attractive boy band that blends sex appeal with hip-hop and calls it HOT. HOT succeeds, and soon floods of boy groups and girl groups follow to varying degrees of success, often paired with behind-the-scenes controversies, fan wars, slave contracts, and everyone's favorite subject of Twitter arguments, cultural appropriation. Hip-hop becomes super popular in Korea as fans of the genre and culture devise new ways in which the Korean language can be bent into rap music without sounding awkward or overly imitative of Americans and the uncomfortable ideas Korean society had of black American culture. Yikes. To thank for this, you have OGs like Verbal Chint and Tiger JK of Drunken Tiger, but you also have Epic High to thank, led by Korean-Canadian rapper and Stanford graduate Tableau. Fuck you if you don't think he graduated from Stanford.
What was that? I have to know. Oh wow, yeah, people have too much time on their hands. That's my interpretation of that.
Epic High became successful not only in hip-hop subcultural circles, but also in the mainstream eye. In the midst of this booming new K-pop music industry, and by K-pop I do mean idol music, as well as the rise of rap music in the mainstream, a successful idol music producer named Pang Si-hyuk
is that a BTS sketch?
big hit
It looks a lot like a BTS sketch.
struggles with money, but stays afloat by working with different groups. In 2010, one of Big Hit's producers, P-Dog, and an underground rapper named Sleepy are drunk. Sleepy says to P-Dog, "Hey bro, do you want to see this teenage rapper I found in an audition? He's pretty dope." And P-Dog says, "Bro, yes." So Sleepy finds his underground Korean rap
Factually accurate historical record.
Namjoon. P-Dog is like, "Bro, he's dope." And Sleepy's like, "Bro, I told you."
His editing is top notch.
Namjoon. And then Pang is like, "Holy cow, he's dope." And then P-Dog is like, "I told you." And then Pang is like, "Shut up, I'm your
This is like the stories in Ant-Man.
Sorry, Mr. Pang." And then Pang is like, "Bring this kid in immediately to audition for my..."
It's interesting that he has the same kind of view of Bang PD as I do, which is hilarious to me. Though I didn't secretly watch all this guy's videos and steal his content.
And he does the audition. Pang is blown away. Now the problem,
He looks taller than RM.
Pang doesn't know what to do with this kid. He knows he's the real deal and is devoted to making him part of a bigger project to get him famous. And so he decides, I'm gonna put Namjoon in a rap group, like Epic High. So they start holding auditions for rappers, and a bunch of them come and go. The second audition, which contained a video cattle call that has since become an infamous meme, brought in the group's second rapper,
It's the haircut for sure.
Suga. As time evolved,
Suga.
the idea morphs from being a rap group to being a rap-centric idol group, and Suga and Namjoon realize that they have to dance, which probably sucked for them. What you have to understand about Big Hit is that they were a small company, really small. They would never be able to compete on the level of big labels like SM and YG, who would cherry pick amazing talent, offer them the best potential rewards, and put them in a well-resourced, regimented training system. Big Hit had no trainee system in place when they brought in Namjoon, and scraped by to create one, brought in more members, and adapted with what they had.
It's buying off more than you can chew.
From this time period, which include the group's senior member, Jin, paying for the youngest member, Jungkook's food out of his pocket instead of from funding they had from Big Hit, which was quite low. When it was finally time for BTS to debut, their act was sharpened and had resolve. They were going to wear dark clothes and do lots of acrobatics and shouts on stage. They were going to critique Korean society based on their own feelings and influences from groups like Epic High, as encouraged by Pang and as part of Big Hit's mantra of music for healing. They were going to film themselves a lot, capturing their struggle to get better from the beginning. Their second ever reality show featured the group heading to Los Angeles to get drilled on hip-hop culture, which was to be a fulcrum of their ethos.
I really want to watch that because I feel like I read that was also part of how they got like woke on race and the idea of cultural appropriation or like respecting the source material. It sounds fascinating. I think I read an article about it and it sounds fascinating. So yeah, I want to watch that.
So much more than any other big group before them. Generally, I'd say it's because they blended the subversive, progressive virality of acts like Sotejin Boys and Psy with the well-trained dynamism of big groups like Big Bang and EXO. But perhaps more importantly, BTS, intentionally and inadvertently, had an ethos. Being a fan of BTS meant sharing in that ethos. BTS and Big Hit pushed music for healing. Each of their records have messages, implicit and explicit, which encourage social change, respect, and self-healing. Their first ever series of albums, known as the School Series, tackled the commodification of dreams.
Wait, I feel like I haven't appreciated that album art before. I feel like this is perfect for people like me who are just like, you know, because I feel like when I saw all these letters together, O-R-U-L-E-2, it didn't like, you know, because it's been a while since I listened to Skater Boy or whatever. Avril Lavigne's, you know, long gone, I guess, from the music industry. You know, like I just was like, oh, but no. This is for people like me. It's gently, softly in the background, have the actual album title, how it's supposed to be pronounced, just to help out clueless fools like me. See, BTS have been all about accessibility from the beginning.
Series tackled the commodification of dreams and the pressure from older generations, themes that would later surface in anti-establishment anthems like Bepse and Paradise. Or take the later Love Yourself album series as another example. The self-explanatory title bridges together a conceptualized album trilogy by the group which delved into themes of self-love and exploration of identity. And bear in mind,
that's so much BTS music I haven't
trilogy
got around to doing yet.
Lines, that's stuff that hadn't really been done in this format at all prior to BTS and became influential moving forward. These albums were not only written to appeal to young audiences, but to guide young audiences to happier, healthier lives. And in this way, BTS perfectly called to the duality we see in the history of K-pop, blending the exportable Western ideals of progressivism, expressivism, and rebellion with the Confucian ideals of respect and patience and morality. This is why older audiences, as well as non-female audiences, also highly approve of BTS, especially in Korea. They don't see the same facetiousness or consumerism in BTS's methodology. The general quality that gets brought up is authenticity or organicness, which are at their roots very confusing and toxic words, but still feel apropos in describing the unique quality of BTS.
Yeah, and it does make sense because like it sounds pretentious to say this. I'm open-minded to everything, but if I feel like something is organic and it was created for a purpose other than just being created to make money, like that helps me enjoy it more. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty cynical about capitalism and stuff. Like, and media and creativity is its own thing that really should not be touched by It's funny. It's, you know, we live in a society. Meme JPEG. No, but we live in a society where you obviously have to make money to survive. So obviously I'm not saying you shouldn't try and make money off of creativity and art. And semi-related topic, Patreon, still in the description. But if art is made for money's sake, that's where it becomes a problem, you know, like, and I don't mean a problem as in like an outrage. Like, I just think you can tell, like, it just never is as good. Because humans and humanity and money could not be more diametrically opposed. There's no Venn diagram where the two coming together makes sense. Like, money only makes, you know, sense really as kind of a form of control. Like, you know, the idea behind it is like a social contract, but when the social contract has been developed by people that, you know, are far above us on the ladder and we will never ever have any control over, then it's not really it's not a two-sided equal form of social contract, let's put it that way. Point being, creativity comes from within, and, you know, true creativity, and the times when I felt the most creatively inspired, the most like, okay, yes, this is it, this is the raw stuff coming out of me, this is what I want to try and capture. It's never been because I was like, and I'm doing that because this would make me the most money possible. It was never about that, you know what I mean? Like, the excitement and the love and the joy comes from the belief in the art. I just think they're completely separate things, and I think that's why, you know, it's so easy for me to enjoy BTS's content, because the authenticity is so obvious there, you know. And if you want to get real for a second, I think that's probably also why I didn't enjoy Dynamite that much. But that's fine. Like, there's split audiences for everything, and pop bands are always going to exist. I wish every pop band was like BTS, where, you know, maybe they had a few more like commercially pleasing singles, and then like most of their discography was kind of stuff that makes you want to sit down with a therapist for 4 hours.
In BTS's methodology. The general quality that gets brought up is authenticity or organicness, which are at their roots very confusing and toxic words, but still feel apropos in describing the unique quality of BTS. Let's look at another article written by the aforementioned TK Park alongside author Youngdae Kim. It examines the boy band label given to BTS and how BTS compare with other boy bands throughout history, saying this of their organic status. Quote, BTS's music comes across as organic because it is a natural output of the members' own minds. It is not a coincidence that BTS began their musical journey with hip-hop, the genre that perhaps has the highest bar for authenticity. Lead rapper Kim Namjoon writes his lyrics, so does Suga, who also produces, so does J-Hope, who also produces, and the rest of the group, all vocalists, all contribute to the creative process in their own ways as well. But BTS not only have a message and an independent spirit and a creative vitality.
Okay, are there BTS songs? I mean, maybe I probably are. I probably already reacted to them, let's face it, but are there BTS songs, or name some for me, where it's like the Beatles thing, where it's like, wow, you'll never guess what, woo, wacky thing happening. Oh shit, members' names. This is really putting a spanner in the works in this wacky anecdote or metaphor, but where Ringo Starr, for example, like, it's like, oh, Ringo Starr did a song, what's that all about? And it's good, crazy, you know. It's almost, because I feel like you could say Sugar, RM, and J-Hope are like the Lennon-McCartney partnership of the Beatles, if we're going to make that analogy. So are there any songs that are written by Jungkook or written by Jin or no, there's no one left. Jimin, right? Okay. That are just written by them, and it's like interesting, and also I'm curious. Let me know in the comments.
They also have a Little Engine That Could story, a feel-good tale about this one under-resourced group that stuck to their guns and ended up succeeding past all of the other much more well-resourced, richer, more conventional groups. It's also worth noting that BTS's fan base is incredibly culturally and demographically diverse in general. It includes all genders,
I mean, look at me.
and all age groups. That's not to say that there aren't fans of other groups from all demographics, it just doesn't split quite as evenly as BTS's fan base does, usually. You see tweets from older married couples excitedly ruminating on seeing BTS live for the first time. These dynamics are not only unprecedented within K-pop, they're unprecedented to any boy band anywhere in the world, perhaps including the Beatles, whose pop work and more subversive work mostly engaged younger and artsier audiences, while BTS appealed to all age groups and interest groups. When you simply label BTS as a K-pop group, or as a boy band, and then paint their fan bases sex-crazed young women whose attraction to the group,
I mean, look at me.
From physical
That is me in a nutshell.
excitement and hysteria, you not only are sort of painting a bad image about young women in general and their tastes, but you're also missing a key component of why the group is successful. So if labeling
Oh, we're back. All right, camera just died. I had no idea how. Well, I guess I could have guessed, but this is a long video already. I talk a lot out of my ass already, but no, it's a really well done, in-depth video. Give me a lot to talk about. I'm enjoying it a lot. Hope you guys are too. I think I was about to say, before my camera just collapsed on me, is that, like, this is harkening back. Is that a term people still use, harkening back? Or am I accidentally writing A Christmas Carol? But this is harkening back to, that whole nasty incident with the German radio presenter. Like, he portrayed BTS not only in a way that was racist, but also sexist. There was a lot of isms being jismed out of his boring mouth. But yeah, like, the whole part of that thing was, was the snobbery of looking down on music that is perceived as being mostly enjoyed by females, or even, shock horror, young females. And the irony of how, people look down on the Beatles the same way, and now pretentious music hipsters will trip over themselves singing their praises and saying how ahead of their time and revolutionary and great they were. Anyway, let's just rewind a tiny bit, because I forgot where I am and what my name is.
So if labeling BTS as a K-pop group isn't wholly accurate, is it accurate at all? Part 3. Conclusion. Are BTS a K-pop group?
Yes and no is going to be the answer, I guess.
Yeah, they're a K-pop group. At least I think so. You might notice that I am doing this a bit different from the rest of the video. That's because I recorded this part a few days after the original video was recorded, because I wanted to redo this part and make sure that I worded it correctly, make sure that I, came off the way that I wanted to come off and articulated the points that I wanted.
Lost his mic in the meantime as well. R.I.P.
A pretty nuanced conversation, one that different people are going to stand on different sides of, and I don't take issue with anybody saying that BTS aren't a K-pop group, because categorization is pretty dumb and up to anybody to, decide. And also I think, it's pretty refreshing to hear that people want to take BTS and their achievements and put it in its own category. That's a beautiful thing in a way. I just think, for one, when you look at what BTS have done, from the fact that they came from the K-pop industry, that they accept Idol as a title, and they made it the center of one of their songs, one of their hits, Idol, and the fact that they've done reality shows and variety shows, first doing them on the network shows and then doing them on their own, the fact that they have similar release strategies to K-pop groups and how much output they do, the way that they combine different styles of music. I mean, they have their own unique blend of it, but it's still a blend that pretty much resembles K-pop in a lot of ways. The fact that they sing in Korean, the fact that they, are in the same category when it comes to award shows and nominations as somebody like EXO or somebody like Blackpink. They just swept all the Daesangs this past, season. I think ultimately what BTS do is take the format and the ideas of K-pop and rearrange them and edit them and elevate them in many ways. They don't represent a different category altogether from K-pop to me. They represent a new horizon for it. They represent somebody pushing the boundaries of it and opening up the definition of K-pop and blazing a new trail for different artists who want to do K-pop to see what they did and learn from them. They're changing the definition a little bit, and they're opening it up, but they're not necessarily separating themselves entirely from K-pop.
Yeah, if anything, it's a wholesome progression. They're K-pop, but where the artists are allowed to have complete creative control over their own content and talk about potentially contentious or boundary-pushing issues. But they've also demonstrated that you can not only be successful from that, but you can be the most successful. I think it's actually really encouraging when people do the right thing and are rewarded for it, and then it becomes a trailblazing demonstration to their CEOs, the guys in suits, to be like, well, look, if they can do it, well, why can't we?
Ultimately, what the problem is here is not necessarily whether or not you can classify BTS as K-pop, because, sure, you can. The problem is that people are so predisposed to categorizing them as K-pop before anything else. The problem is that people want to wash over the unique elements of the things that they do in order to just classify them as a K-pop group and attribute all their success and their glory to that. That's not fair, and that's not smart.
And there's another shame to that, which is the stigma behind K-pop, and there is a stigma around it in the West. It is racist, or it has its roots in racism. It's not necessarily intentional, or it's not very aware, but a lot of racism isn't very self-aware, let's face it. I mostly have friends, some of whom aren't just me in a different coat or whatever, who I think are also very progressive and open-minded. But even some of my progressive and open-minded friends, when they've discussed my channel or the video thing, they'll be like, "But do you actually like BTS? You actually enjoy it? It's K-pop. How could you get into it?" It's just, there's a disconnect there where they don't realize the reason that they are so assured or so convinced that it must be just some wacky foreign thing that only teenagers could is. Like I said, I don't think it's self-aware, but I do think it comes from a place of ignorance, because I really do think the underlying logic is, well, it's Korean and foreign and kind of bright and pink and bubbly, so it can't be good, surely. And I do think there's kind of a hazard or an interesting thing where I almost feel like this guy's being a bit apologetic. He's like, well, people want to call them K-pop before anything else, and it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no difference really between the most manufactured, bright, colorful, cookie cutter K-pop, if you want to call it that, and something like Katy Perry, You know what I mean? Like some of Katy Perry's music videos, like there's so many Western artists that you could apply to that. And I think other videos have expressed this. There really is this snobbery, this idea that like Korea's idol system is so drastically different from the West's system. And I don't think it is that different. I think maybe the main difference is just that they're just more unapologetic about it, or just more open, like, or even maybe people just like drawing attention to it more for reasons that, you know, maybe you could write a whole essay analyzing. But the idea that there's no exploitation going on in Western music is, you know, ludicrous, quite frankly. But regardless, the point being, I almost feel like part of the thing of being like, we don't want to call BTS like strict K-pop, is this idea that, you know, you have to apologize for the genre of K-pop because it is processed or manufactured or pink or whatever, and it's like that. And I can't personally see a massive difference between that and a lot of Western pop music.
The unique elements of the things that they do in order to just classify them as a K-pop group and attribute all their success and their glory to that. That's not fair, and that's not smart. It's not smart even when you do it with other groups that have pushed the boundaries of K-pop, like a Soteji or like a 17 who write and produce their own music, like a G-Friend who are similar, like IU who does amazing conceptual work as well. I think that these people are not necessarily separate from K-pop, but you can classify them as so many more things than K-pop. You can classify
Okay, ADHD tangent, but this guy's a genius. If I just film myself, if I turn all my lights off and film myself in the dark, I wouldn't have to pretend to clean my space. Well, I sometimes I'll try and close the cabinets because I know that annoys some of you guys, ADHD, leaving all the cabinets open. I'm surprised I haven't taken my own eye out, honestly. And sometimes I'll try and clear the kitchen counter that might appear in the background. But if I'd film myself in the dark, I wouldn't have to do that. Anyway, ADHD fought over. Let's go back a bit.
You can classify them as so many more things than K-pop. You can classify BTS ultimately as a pop group or a pop rap group or whatever before you classify them as K-pop, because they belong in the same category as someone like Taylor Swift or someone like Halsey, who greatly respects and admires them, or Ariana Grande or Billie Eilish. I mean, these are the kind of artists that BTS find themselves in the same level of global success as. The type of artists that ultimately BTS are similar to in many ways, and yet because they're Korean and because K-pop is a part of their identity, it pretty much dominates the conversation unfairly. We are very easy going when it comes to classifying people regionally when they come from other regions, but not recognizing that we are regional artists ourselves in the United States. That's kind of worded, but whatever. Ultimately, I think that's the
A-pop. I love me some A-pop.
Artists, and you can call them that, but you can also call them many other things. They're proud of that part of themselves, but to define them as that would be to be missing the entirety of the picture. And that's something that happens with media a lot. We categorize things very easily, try to attribute things in nice little boxes without recognizing the big picture.
And that's what my professor said about my articles and essays too. It's all coming full circle.
For something as gigantic as BTS is in terms of a worldwide movement, that's a huge mistake. Once you acknowledge that the things people think about K-pop are not entirely true, you begin to see that the supposed separation between BTS and K-pop is not as drastic as one may think, while still being there to some degree. BTS mix elements of hip-hop, a Black American genre, with indigenous Korean culture, like in their engendering of Han, a cultural emotional concept unique to the Korean people that involves a feeling of forlorn grief and resentment. Their music blends the Korean Confucian elements of traditional Korean society while also nailing elements of exploitation, of Western cultural ideas and progressivism that marked the rise of Hallyu. This does not mean that BTS's successes, as so many in global media seem to indicate, can be attributed to the rise of K-pop. The rise of BTS and the rise of K-pop are distant cousins. BTS's rise...
Okay, what music video is this one with the completely balls-to-the-wall psychedelic trippy visuals and crazy like chrome punk, neon punk like aesthetic? Because I haven't seen this and I want to. Seriously.
Pop's growing popularity is its own unique story. K-pop makes sense as a categorization for BTS in terms of one of the elements of who they are, but it does not make sense as a brush to paint over BTS's story the same way one can brush over Whitesnake's success as being attributed to hair metal. BTS do elude categorization.
I wish my hair was that good or I could be successful off it.
History, and for that they do live in their own category.
To be fair, BTS's hair is so good that maybe we should call them hair pop, H-pop. Like, they probably could make a living just off their hair. The bastards.
Lewd categorization in a way perhaps unmatched throughout pop music history, and for that they do live in their own category. But that doesn't make them not a K-pop group. It doesn't mean that the K-pop category can't describe them just as the hip-hop category or the general pop category can at times. Additionally, while many Koreans will tell you that K-pop is not popular amongst adults in Korea and is not treated as...
See, this is why I kind of hate genres. Like, I understand the idea of them, but people love drawing lines. Humans absolutely love drawing ridiculous lines in the sand and then putting all their identity behind them. And people will do that. If you have an island that's like 10 foot square, and put 10 humans on it, they'll try and draw 10 foot, 1 square lines in it, and then they'll draw a millimeter line. By the end of it, they'll be dancing on one toe saying, this is my square and I'm not leaving it. And if you're not in this square, you're a heathen. Like, humans love doing that kind of shit. It's ridiculous. But that's why I don't really like, the whole genres thing. And it's not just because I'm insecure about not being very musical and not knowing BPMs and stuff. No, it's because it's just like, it's very asinine in the day and all genres have ever really done, especially when I was younger and more ignorant and less open-minded, is just block good music off to me, just to think, well, I can't listen to that. I'm 15 and I'm a sort of new metal head, or I like System of a Down, so I can't be seen to be enjoying anything else. Like, at the end of the day, that's really what genres do, is just kind of draw lines in the sand and make people not, go outside their comfort zone or have new experiences. So, that's why this poor chap is now trying to justify why BTS can be pop, K-pop, rap all at the same time. It's because, genres are kind of just silly at the end of the day. They have their uses. They're not completely useless, but I think oftentimes they cause more confusion or more problems than they solve.
That doesn't mean it isn't a serious genre. The rise of poptimism in American music criticism, while controversial for a number of reasons, does center around the reality that pop music is still a legitimate and investigatable form of music, even at its most saturated and commoditized. This is especially true of pop artists who explore the form through writing and producing, much like Taylor Swift, Kendrick Lamar. Damn is a pop album and it slaps, don't at me. And of course BTS.
Yeah, sure.
Comes to erase civilization, we will be discussing BTS. We will be figuring out how to categorize them, failing, and then analyzing why we failed. And in the present tense, we have to continue to pressure Western media to cover BTS like the unique phenomenon that they are, not as the symptom of a viral wave or an inhumane industry or a sex-fueled craze, but as a unique, game-changing group of artists. So much of the story of BTS is one of fighting K-pop, from dealing with accusations of faking sales numbers when their album eclipsed Big Bang's album in 2015, to dealing with waves of hateful fan comments you can probably find in videos that have the term BTS and hardship in the title. This extends to fighting the label of K-pop, a label so unfairly loaded it can instantly turn global audiences away. From conservative country boys in the south of the US, to the hyper-masculinist audiences from conservative countries in Latin America, to the leftist communities appalled by the spooky K-pop industry. That, by the way, is its own thing that we gotta cover in a separate video. We forget often that neither BTS nor K-pop can be properly and unilaterally defined. They both wield complicated semiotic experiences. They not only symbolize so many things, but the things that they symbolize differ greatly from person to person. In studying BTS, we observe how a person or group of people's categorization can be theirs to champion or theirs to destroy. How your category can both be the thing you feel you are the least and the thing you feel you are the most. I said that in such a deep and cool way. Yeah. God bless me. God bless me.
No, I fully agree.
We done.
I love this guy. I'm fully on that train. The best way to round out a video or a sentence is to say the same thing twice, but with opposite meanings. It always makes you look like a genius. It's like, well, I think you'll find I'm both awake and asleep. Don't have real glasses. Wasn't as good as him, but yeah, that's my favorite thing.
And the thing you feel you are the most. I said that in such a deep and cool way.
You're a genius. I love you.
God bless me for acting.
Yes, God, please bless you.
Done. Get it off my hands. Off my hands. Thanks to everyone for helping me out. Thanks to Motoborahe. Thanks to my cat for the amazing support. I think she left. Check out.
We never knew. Your video was too dark. Sad.
Follow TY but disagree on Twitter. I have been your host, Elliot Sang. If you have an opinion about this, and you probably do have an opinion about this,
it was great.
You might be mad at me about what
not
my
mad
opinion is. Leave a comment. Be nice, but leave a comment. Or don't be nice. Fuck it. I can take it. All right, bye.
Yeah, I'm going to leave a comment. That's for sure. Subscribed, and it was great. Oh, and he's got credits and everything. Wow, that was brilliant. I love YouTube for stuff like this. Like, the amount of effort, you know, because, like, obviously there's a lot that's wrong with YouTube and social media, but, like, the fact that it gives people a platform to do their own documentary style stuff and just have it all be their own kind of thing, like all their own editing choices, all their own filming choices even, like, it's a lot more unique than when you used to sit back down in 2005 or something, because everyone's me, and watch, you know, Discovery Channel, and it was just some like foddy-doddy like, and Genghis Khan did make his way. Like, it's, you know, like, this is like documentary wise a good era to be in, I reckon. Yeah, I am now a fangirl of Baby Gang, apparently. If you're watching this, Baby Gang, you know, let's hang out. That was really, really good, really fantastic. Everything my written essays weren't in university, even sourced and stuff. He's got a bibliography. I'm looking at this now, which is insulting to me. But yeah, that was really, really great. And it was cool as well because I think a lot of the stuff that was in there I already knew about. It's nice to, like, I'm not trying to like diminish the work because it was like fantastic as a whole thing, but I think I'm aware of a lot of stuff that's already in there, so it makes me feel good, like I actually have absorbed a lot of information I've read about BTS, and that there is some point in you guys giving me advice on stuff to watch, or comments you write, essays you write in the comments that I, you know, basically always try and read and try and absorb. I think some of it has gone in, which is great. Yeah, that was really, really cool, and I think I already gave my whole spiel about genres and stuff, so arguably he did it better, probably, definitely. But yeah, thanks for suggesting that, guys. I really hope you enjoyed my reactions to that. And if you haven't seen this video and you want to see it without me pausing it and talking about ridiculous stuff, then as always, all the videos I watch, the links to them is in the description, so you can go and check it out, unspoiled, untainted, as it were. Please make sure you subscribe if you want to see more reactions like this. Keep your suggestions coming. I do try and read all of them, and I wish I could do all of them, but, you know, like, if someone suggests something that looks pretty wholesome and it has plenty of votes, then I'm likely to do it. Let's put it that way. And please do and go and check out my Patreon, especially if you want to suggest stuff to me. I have Patreon for Thursdays there. Every Thursday you can tell me what to do, and you can vote on what video I should react to, as well as lots of lovely but Run BTS and Bon Voyage reactions. And my Discord, of course, is in the description, all that kind of stuff, social medias. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Baby Gang for existing. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. And remember, if you like my reaction to this fantastic video essay, then click the subscribe button, essay. I'm fantastic at Spanish. It's probably the longest BTS reaction I've done yet. Didn't feel long though.